voting. As mentioned, I'm a member of the League of Women Voters, which, by the way, is not limited to women. All are welcome, including men. What better way to celebrate Women's History Month than by remembering the passage of the 19th Amendment, entitling women to vote. Remember, the Constitution does not state who can vote. Does that give me more time?
Yes.
Originally, that was given to the states to decide, which they did. Basically, only white men could vote. That said, the focus of my talk today is primarily on the local suffrage movement. It was pretty mild compared with how suffragists on the East Coast were treated. We had dissenters and anti-groups, but basically it was civilized. Local groups that supported women's suffrage included Farmers Alliance, the Women's Christian Temperance Union, the political equality clubs, and women's civic clubs. The women and men who founded or were involved in these groups tended to be upper class and business owners. Co-founders of the San Luis Obispo Political Equality Club included Sarah Stanford and her daughter Therese Crittenden, whose husband and father owned the Tribune and the Breeze newspapers. Harriet Exline was a successful Paso Robles rancher and dairy farmer who, as a member of the Farmers Alliance, gave suffrage speeches around the county. But it was also outside agitators who relentlessly carried the message of equality to our local community. 1896 was the year many of these outsiders visited San Luis Obispo as a result of the California suffragists successfully placing a referendum on the November ballot. It's difficult to comprehend what these women had to contend with in 1896. The railroad had only arrived in San Luis Obispo 2 years before from over the Costa Grave. One experienced outside organizer was Harriet Mills from New York. Her notes told of 2 scorching summer weeks traveling the wretched roads from Santa Margarita, San Miguel, out to Creston and Australia, over to Cambria, and down to Pismo Beach. She even traveled to hot tubbers at Sycamore Mineral Springs to spread the message. But the leading outsider was Susan B. Anthony, who at 76 still transfixed a sellout crowd in San Luis Obispo, urging, quote, to settle the matter and have peace in the family, the men might just as well vote yes this time. The majority of San Luis Obispo County men did vote yes in the first election for women's suffrage in 1896, though it lost statewide, primarily because of cities that worried about the effect on the alcohol trade. San Francisco and Alameda were hugely against. It took another 15 years for California suffragists to find success. On October 10, 1911, Californians voted to amend the California Constitution to allow women the right to vote. But it passed by only 3,500 votes out of almost 250,000. Again, the men of San Luis Obispo County voted in favor, but also by a very small margin. Women in California could now vote in all elections, but that didn't stop them from continuing to push for suffrage at the national level. On June 4th, 1919, Congress voted for this 19th Amendment and sent it to the state legislatures for ratification. It was a close call, passing by only 1 vote in Tennessee's legislature. 11 states didn't even ratify the amendment until decades later, with Mississippi the last to ratify in 1984, even though the women could vote. There is so much to learn from the suffrage movement and the history of the long, hard struggle for all citizens to have the right to vote. Our right to vote is a fragile right, and it is a right that did not come easily or quickly to women or other minorities. We should not and cannot take the right for granted, especially considering how close the numbers were for our state and the nation's amendments. The outcome could easily have been much different. Our government was built on the premise that it should be governed by the people. That can only happen if we actually vote. Thank you.